And we're back, everybody. This is our pharmacological ergogenic age chapter, pharmacological or chemical ergogenic age chapter. In the first part, we talked a lot about the definitions of supplement versus ergogenic aid. We talked a little bit about the history of ergogenic aids. They're not new. And then we began talking a little bit about the NCAA as an example of how they ban a lot of things now, and then we began our discussion. So we talked about, in the first video, anabolic steroids and human growth hormone. So in the second video, I'm going to move much quicker since you already have kind of the outline of what we're doing. And as always, I'm just going to underline what you need to know. Okay, so now we're going to switch away from the hormones and talk about some other ergogenic aids that are chemical in nature, which means that they're a synthetic chemical versus what the next chapter is going to be. The next chapter is nutritional ergogenic aids. And of course, those are nutritional byproducts, but these are not. All right, let's talk about amphetamines. I'm guessing you've heard of these. You may not have heard of the term greenies. That's probably an older term now. But these are basically uppers. Uppers was, what I used to hear when I was younger in the after-school specials. Don't take the uppers. Amphetamines could be very dangerous. Let's talk about what they are. So when you think about an amphetamine, it is like an upper. And I put that down there because it really helps to portray what its potential ergogenic effect is. It's basically a stimulant. It stimulates your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight. So it's an upper or a nervous system stimulant. Because of that, it will increase heart rate, increase blood pressure. Your heart will pump out more blood, and so forth. It does have quite a history as an ergogenic aid, not only for athletes. Back in the day, again, when I was growing up, it was used sometimes as a study aid for students who were staying up really late or just recreationally. This is an example of something that has a lot of its roots in the military. In the military, if you are given a job where you need to stay up for long periods of time, something like this could actually be a benefit and save your life. But in athletes, the potential benefit to athletes would be, this is what they say, more energy. Not only is it a stimulant in that it makes you feel more energetic, it can actually increase your blood sugar and deliver more fuel to your working muscles, and concentration. So our two potential benefits to an athlete would be longer energy, better concentration. Because of this, it could be potentially useful to both a strength, weightlifter, sprinter, or aerobic endurance athlete. Again, you only need to know what I am underlining or circling. Now, this one is not as much in favor as it used to be. When I was in high school, way back in the 90s, they were starting to sell some of these at the 7-Eleven, at the convenience store, and athletes, it was new. We didn't have the internet as much then, and you would go, but it quickly became banned by a lot of sporting bodies, and it potentially has some negative side effects that could be serious. So let's just go one by one. What does the research say? No effect on performance. Now, of course, some kind of stimulant like this may actually make you feel more awake. But in terms of athletic performance, we have not seen a scientifically proven benefit. There could be some safety issues, and it is banned. So I do want to show you there are some serious complications from some of these. This is before my time even. But it has been taken by athletes all throughout the years. You saw a picture here of a former Yankee, right? Flunked because he took greenies or amphetamines. Back in 1967, a Tour de France rider took it, died. He was exhausted, kind of fell off his bike, died on the side of the road. And there were amphetamines in his blood. Now, did he die only because of amphetamines? Probably not, but it certainly didn't help. What I want to talk about now is you may not see greenies like I saw them back in 1995, but now we have a lot of amphetamine-like substances. One example is synephrine, which is in, for example, many pre-workout. How about that? So I'm not going to ask you anything about this on a test, but I just wanted to point out that you may not see the word amphetamine, but the idea behind this type of upper has not gone away. Synephrine is kind of like what's found in Sudafed, meaning can kind of keep you awake. All right, I do want to talk about caffeine. You know what caffeine is. It's a chemical compound. It is found naturally in coffee, so we know coffee has caffeine, tea, chocolate has caffeine, right? So it's a chemical compound that is found in many foods and beverages, but it's not a nutritional, it's not a byproduct of a protein, for example. So that's why we're still talking about it here. It's actually a chemical derived from the coffee bean or the tea leaf, okay? So it's a chemical compound. I give you some examples. There's caffeine in things that you might not realize. Of course, we know that there's caffeine in coffee and tea and chocolate, but you may not know there's caffeine in a lot of other things. Diuretics, pain relievers, etc. I'm not going to ask you anything about this, but it does give you an idea. It also gives you an example of how many milligrams. Okay, let's lay out the proposed mechanisms of how caffeine acts, and then how it might help performance. Please ignore this red circle in the middle. Like I said, whenever I share my PowerPoints over to my iPad, these weird things come over. So what does caffeine do? Well, it can stimulate fat metabolism. Because of that, it could improve endurance performance, right? So I'm talking about, here's what it does. Here's how it may affect performance. But I want to just point out what you need to know. One of the things that caffeine has been purported to do is improve endurance. So I'm going to circle that in red because I would like you to know that. Let's look at some other things that caffeine might do. It is another stimulant. So because of that, it could improve performance, but it could also improve focus, attention. So those are the two potential benefits that I want to point out. Improves endurance and may improve focus. I get more specific here on the left, but let's just keep it simple. What are two main reasons why caffeine may improve athletic performance? It can improve endurance and improve focus. What has it been shown to do? The only benefit that has been proven through scientific research is in endurance. So this is not going to help a weightlifter. It's not going to help a football player. And I think this is probably news to you. Doesn't mean that people are going to stop taking it. I'm giving you the science. No scientific, for sure, evidence that shows high intensity, short duration, like a weightlifter or a football player. Nope, no difference. The focus thing, that's hard to measure also because it's usually subjective, but it doesn't seem to improve performance. So the only potential benefit to caffeine that's actually been shown through scientific research is endurance. I give you the amount because caffeine can improve our ability to burn fat, which is how we get that improvement in endurance. This would be the recommended milligram per kilo of body weight. I'm not going to ask you that, but it's there in case you're interested. So there are endurance athletes out there who have a little cup of coffee before they run the marathon, okay? Another thing that people say is that caffeine is a diuretic, so it's going to make you pee more, and that could have a negative impact on fluid balance and hydration and ability to thermoregulate. But look, no significant studies that show it's a diuretic. I want you to know that. Some of it, I think, is anecdotal, which just means that people say it's true for them. But I believe a lot of this has just been carried over from what people have said for so long that you think that's the case. But when we actually study it, it's not true scientifically. What are some of the side effects? So it can make you restless. These are supposed to be up arrows. It could potentially give you quick energy followed by a crash. What I want you to know from this slide is it's legal in many sporting bodies up to a certain amount. Legal up to a certain amount. You don't have to memorize that amount. But this is something that is legal only in certain quantities. I'm using the NCAA as our example. By the way, IOC is International Olympic Committee. But for the NCAA, it's about 500 milligrams, 2 to 3 hours before competition. That sounds like a lot, and it is a lot. But as I mentioned in the last video, with this stacking idea now, someone has an energy drink with caffeine. They take a caffeine pill. They had their pre-workout, which also contained caffeine. They took an anti-allergy medication the night before. It's still in their system. You had a piece of chocolate earlier. These things add up, and you can absolutely get to that 500 milligrams if you don't think about it, okay? You don't need to know that amount, but I'm just giving you the data. So I give you some examples of how much will be needed and just stay within the legal range. Look at the Woke AF pre-workout. 1 scoop has 333 milligrams of caffeine. That is a lot. So that and a cup of coffee, you're already at your 500 milligrams. So be careful. Okay, what a nice segue into energy drinks. Let's talk about energy drinks. What are they? Well, it's really a collection of ingredients put in a can, labeled energy drink. It's marketed as a way to increase your energy. But now they contain a whole bunch of other ingredients. See, back in my day, folks, it used to be Red Bull. And the primary ingredient in Red Bull is caffeine. And you kind of knew what you were getting into. But now, oh my God, there are so many types, and the ingredients are really out of control. So you need to pay attention. So I wanted to give an example, and I picked Monster Energy, not because I'm picking on them, but it's common. So I took the label, and what's in it? Well, taurine. What's that? It even says it at the top. L-carnitine. That's in the green rectangle, carnitine. Then we have guarana. Then we have caffeine. Then we have B vitamins. Then we have sugar. You can even look at the actual ingredient list. Sugar. Remember, what's listed first is present in higher amounts. Glucose, that's more sugar. Citric acid, more sugar. What's next? Taurine. Ginseng extract. L-carnitine. Then caffeine. So caffeine is actually lower on the list. So it contains much more than you think. What are all these things? Well, a nice compare and contrast. You know me by now. Caffeine, supposed to improve concentration, increase energy, increase endurance. The only potential benefit of caffeine is to endurance athletes. What is the taurine? That's what's listed first. Taurine. That means that there's more of it. What's taurine? Taurine is something that is meant to be an antioxidant. Maybe can improve recovery. Does it work? No. Guess what? Also banned by the NCAA. Guarana. Guarana is a more potent caffeine, much more potent type of caffeine, banned by the NCAA. Other stimulants. Guarana, I just said. Synephrine is in other energy drinks, supposed to improve concentration energy. No significant difference. Sugar. Well, if I bring in more sugar, will I have more energy? Potentially, yes, but you're already getting sugar through other diet. So do you really need this much more? No. What's L-carnitine? We haven't gotten to L-carnitine yet. L-carnitine is a way to help us burn more fat and improve performance. Has it been shown to be effective? No. And by the way, a lot of people who take this are anaerobic athletes, weight lifters, football player. They're not endurance. So the things that possibly might help, like caffeine, is not going to help the weightlifter. B vitamins. A lot of them also have B vitamins. We need B vitamins, as you know, in order to metabolize carbs and fat for energy, but bringing in more, no benefit to performance. Many energy drinks also add branched-chain amino acids, no immediate benefit to performance. So they're adding all these things that look good on a can, look good on a label, but have no scientific evidence to support that they improve performance. And when you're drinking all these things, they're going to add together, and you're taking a lot of these chemical things that are not regulated. Okay. Apparently I had 2 of those. Some side effects of energy drinks, well, sure, it can irritate your gut, quick energy followed by a crash, make you jittery. But many of these ingredients are banned, much less unsafe, and they're not legal, some of them. You really got to be careful, folks. Some of the things that were in there are banned, particularly in higher amounts. Taurine, also banned by the NCAA. There was this whole thing about Celsius. Maybe you heard of it. I had never heard of Celsius because it's a newer energy drink. It's just another one. It's just been marketed well. That's the only reason why it's so popular. Look, this is taken from an NCAA institution. Okay? Below is a list of commonly consumed items that contain substances that are currently banned. Celsius, Ghost, Monster, pre-workout. You got to be careful, folks. And again, the NCAA isn't banning them because they work. They're banning them because of potential side effects, and they don't want to get sued. Celsius, banned. Maybe you read about this. Let's look at Celsius for a moment. It contains, well, B vitamins. That's not surprising. Oh, chromium's a new one. Does it work? No. What are some of the ingredients? Let's see. Water, citric acid. That's sugar. Oh, they have taurine too. Oh, guarana. That's caffeine. More caffeine. Green tea. Sucralose. So it says here no sugar, but it's got a sugar substitute, sucralose. Ascorbic acid, more sugar. Ginger root extract. Oh my goodness. So there was this thing where the NCAA came out and said, we're going to ban Celsius. The Celsius company had a response. Celsius is not banned by the NCAA. So this is a letter from the actual Celsius company. The response from the Celsius company. It's not banned. It has been mistakenly reported. Caffeine is not banned, but just limited. Look, guarana is included on the banned substances list, but only as an example of caffeine. Guarana itself is not banned. Guarana is simply one source of caffeine. Celsius is being sued by the NCAA for not appropriately listing the ingredients that are in it. Guarana does contain very high amounts of caffeine, which is banned. So while guarana itself may not be banned, guarana and caffeine in high amounts is. And Celsius really contains a lot of it. And remember, the NCAA does not list every banned substance. So I see Celsius all the time. My students drink it now all the time. It contains a lot of caffeine, more than many other energy drinks. You should be careful, is my point. Look, I went to other ones. I pulled up the nutrition label for Rockstar Focus, because now they have all these different subtypes. Oh, this one's for energy. Oh, this one's for mental. Oh. One of the ingredients in it, mushroom extract, said to have benefits against fighting dementia, preventing ulcers. Does an athlete need that? No. And there's no evidence that this particular mushroom extract helps athletes, none at all. But like I said, because the market is so big now, each company is trying to stand out. So you don't really know what one of these companies is going to throw in there. Okay, let's finish this chapter. We're going to switch gears to EPO, erythropoietin. Erythropoietin is another hormone naturally produced by the body. So I'm writing down what you need to know. Just like we had testosterone, which is a hormone naturally produced by the body, just like we had growth hormone naturally produced by the body, we also have EPO, hormone naturally produced by the body. So, what does the EPO hormone do for us naturally? Stimulates red blood cell production. And of course, red blood cells carry oxygen. So this is a hormone produced by our bodies naturally that stimulates red blood cell production. And red blood cell production means that we can carry more oxygen. How could this benefit an athlete? Because it produces more red blood cells, we could carry more oxygen. And that's really going to benefit only an endurance athlete. Has this been shown to work? Yes. Just like testosterone. Here's a case where if I bring in more, it actually can make the body carry more oxygen through the bloodstream and deliver more oxygen to the muscles, which would help an endurance athlete. This is what we call when we talk about blood doping. I'm going to try and not get on my soapbox. You all know that I'm an endurance athlete myself with the Ironmans and the cycling now. Lance Armstrong, you know, I'm sure you've heard of his name, hopefully. Years and years and years came out and said, I didn't do it, I didn't blood dope. Attacked his teammates. In my opinion, not a very nice man. But then he came out in an interview with Oprah Winfrey and said, you know what, I did. But everybody else was doing it. So blood doping does work, whether it's just injecting EPO naturally to make the body produce more red blood cells, or what used to happen before it was more tightly regulated is that a cyclist would take their own blood out, put it into a refrigerator, take EPO. So it would be a combination. By taking more blood out, not only would their body naturally produce more EPO to replenish that blood, but then they'd inject EPO, so they'd make even more. And then right before an event, they would put their own blood back into them. This carries with it a lot of potential side effects. It makes the blood more viscous or too thick. It can lower heart rate eventually to a very dangerous level. You're using needles. It could lead to infections. Okay, so by bringing in more EPO, the body will produce more red blood cells, which means it can transport more oxygen. Does it work? Yes, but only for endurance. Is it legal? No. There are a lot of potential side effects. When you're competing at a high level, like the Tour de France, you can make an argument for, well, if everyone else is doing it, I need you to do it to compete. And you have the time and the money and the resources to do it safely. Now they do more of microdosing. They don't take their own blood out anymore. They do microdosing to try and keep the increase in EPO so slight that it doesn't look suspicious. Okay. The problem, though, is that we really need a blood test to do it. So, okay. Let's finish out this chapter. Sodium bicarbonate. Sodium bicarbonate is something that is alkaline. You remember that, probably. We can have things that are acidic, and then on the other end of the spectrum are things that are alkaline or basic. If you're familiar with the pH scale goes from 0, where things are very acidic, to 14, where things are very alkaline or basic. So you should know that sodium bicarbonate is something that is alkaline. Why are we talking about this? Well, during exercise, we produce byproducts that are acidic. Lactic acid, ketones, which could make your blood acidic also, ketoacidosis. So the thinking is during exercise, we do naturally build up acid. So the thought process is, well, if I build up acid, which could be bad in excess, taking something that is alkaline can buffer against that acid buildup. What that means is, let me use a different word, not necessarily prevent, but taking in something more alkaline can counteract acid buildup from exercise. Now, this makes sense. A lot of these things make sense. The person coming up with these ideas is smart. They have to know their physiology, right? So it makes sense. Of course, we're going to generate some acid during exercise, and if that acid accumulates in higher amounts, it could be dangerous. So wouldn't it help if I take something alkaline to counteract that? What does the research show? Does not work. So here's a thing where, like many others, the mechanism could make sense, but when we actually run the studies, there's no significant benefit. Do you know why? Because your body already has systems to regulate pH. So something we take externally is not going to be as good as what our body has. If you generate too much lactic acid and it accumulates, your body's own systems can't get rid of the acid, can't keep up with getting rid of the acid. Taking something alkaline like baking soda is not going to magically make it go away. Your body already has the best pH regulation system possible. And if you do something where we accumulate lactic acid, there's nothing more we can do. So really the only way to prevent acid buildup is through proper training. So while this sounds great and all, and I'm an endurance athlete, I'm the person that might benefit from this. And I get a lot of pushback from some of my friends. But the science doesn't show that it works. It tends to be pretty safe. It seems to be pretty safe, but it's not doing a damn thing for you. Along the same lines of the sodium bicarbonate is another example of buffering, phosphate. Again, doesn't it sound cool? Phosphate, oh, it must work. This is a similar way, a similar mechanism. So it's a way to buffer against pH. It can buffer against pH, but it can also increase ATP production. You know what? This is something that I'm not going to ask you about. I think you're going to have to know enough. You don't need to know phosphate. The information's here if you want to look at it, but I am not going to ask you questions on any quiz or exam. The long and the short of it is there's really no significant data to show that it works. All right, our last one, which I do want you to know, is insulin. Here we have another hormone. This is our last one. Another hormone naturally produced by the body. So what have we had so far? We've had testosterone, naturally produced by the body to build more muscle. We had growth hormone, naturally produced by the body to rebuild muscle and bone. We had EPO, naturally produced by the body, triggers us to make more red blood cells, which can carry more oxygen. We have insulin, hormone naturally produced by the body. Now, so far, we had testosterone. That does work, but it's illegal. Growth hormone doesn't really work. EPO works, but it's illegal in most sporting bodies. Insulin, naturally produced by the body. This is a hormone that helps to regulate blood sugar. So what it does is it regulates blood sugar. So the function of insulin, it's a very important hormone that regulates blood sugar levels. Maybe you've heard of this as it relates to diabetics. Someone who is a diabetic often doesn't produce enough insulin. Specifically, insulin is released when blood sugar is high, and it tells our body to store more glucose away for later, leaving less sugar in the bloodstream. How might this help an athlete? In a roundabout way, it can help you build more muscle. I'm trying to be careful here because I don't want to get too far into the physiology. You should know the general function of insulin. So it's a hormone produced by the body. Hormone produced by the pancreas. Hormone produced by the body. Its overall function is it helps to regulate blood sugar. In a roundabout way, it may build muscle. Does it really work? Not really. It can supposedly help with shuttling fluid between different compartments in the body, storage of water. Does it really work? No. So here we are again, really stretching to try and find this, but it really doesn't work. Okay, this is our last one, vasodilators. All right. Now, I included these because, as we'll see in the next unit, I went down a rabbit hole with this pre-workout because I'd never heard of it. It's new. It's full of stuff, including vasodilators. It's a whole new world out there, and I really can't believe it, although I shouldn't be surprised. We used to talk mostly about L-arginine. This is an amino acid that is used to produce nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator, which, by the way, is the main ingredient in Viagra. But L-arginine is not used anymore for safety reasons. The newer formulations of these vasodilators is in the form of citrulline malate. You can buy it by itself, or it's in the pre-workout. Let's talk about a vasodilator. A vasodilator dilates blood vessels. So I'd like you to know what I'm writing down. It dilates blood vessels. That means makes them bigger. This is the opposite of a vasoconstrictor. A vasoconstrictor makes a blood vessel smaller in size. a vasodilator increases the size of the blood vessel, which means we have increased blood flow. If I increase the diameter of a blood vessel, I'm going to be able to transport more blood through it. Hence the idea of Viagra, right? If a male is having a difficult time with erectile dysfunction, delivering a nitric oxide vasodilator means the blood vessels to his penis will be enlarged. They'll vasodilate, meaning more blood gets to the penis, and he can therefore be helped with his act. The idea then is, well, what about for athletes? Can't we vasodilate the blood vessels going to skeletal muscles? Or pump? I never heard what that one, it's not even a physiological term, folks. Didn't hear that until recently either. Muscle pumping. There's no such thing as pumping. What they are saying is vasodilation. If I can vasodilate, make the diameter of a blood vessel bigger, I can deliver more blood to the muscles, which means I can deliver more glucose, more oxygen, and everything's good. Does it work? So the proposed benefits, the one that I want to talk about is vasodilator, to increase blood flow to muscles, which can therefore increase performance. They really stretch this out. They say, well, it can also assist with pH balance. It can also increase ATP production. But the general idea we'll stick to is a vasodilator. Increases the size of the blood vessel, which means more blood flow to the muscle. It has been shown to increase blood flow to the muscle, but so far it's unclear whether it actually increases performance. So far we don't know. But there certainly isn't any evidence right now. No evidence, no clear evidence yet. Let's put it that way. I also want you to know that we naturally release vasodilators that already dilate the muscles when we want them to. I mentioned nitric oxide. I'm not going to ask you that, but nitric oxide is one of many chemicals we have in our body already. We already vasodilate where we're supposed to. We really do. And our body is better at it than any chemical that we take in from the outside will ever be. So the idea of bringing in more to vasodilate more, so far, no clear evidence that it actually benefits performance. So, to supplement or not to supplement, of course you know what I'm going to say. Get everything out of your body naturally first. These supplements are not regulated, which means they may not be safe, especially nowadays. They cost money. And, you know, I got my PhD in exercise physiology. I can tell you, without a doubt, sometimes these supplements, the ones that do have evidence to work, like, for example, creatine phosphate. That is a rare ergogenic aid that has been shown it can improve performance. But you know what? Not much. What I can tell you is scientifically proven. You're going to get more of a boost to your performance. You're going to get more muscle gain from your overall diet and from proper training. In particular, proper training. What I'm talking about is building a training program where you're building, you're peaking at the right time, taking appropriate rest. And you know what else? In those moments where you have those last couple sprints at practice, or those last couple reps, pushing through those, really pushing yourself, that's where you're going to get your best physiological gain. So it might be easy, and I understand. It's human nature. Oh, I take that creatine, I'm going to get that extra bump. Well, first of all, it's not as big of a help as you think. These are not regulated. They're expensive. Get proper protein through your diet and work your butt off. That's where you're going to really see the gains that you want. All right, folks. I'll see you next chapter.